On the tech side?
I don't know. Okay.
This meeting of the School Board Nominating Commission of Anne Arundel County will now come to order. Welcome, everyone. The agenda was laid out at each of the commissioners' seats, I think. Everyone has an agenda? Right. So then our next order of business is the approval of minutes, which Commissioner Hammond, Secretary Hammond circulated via email today. Is there any objection to approving the minutes, adopting the minutes?
I circulated them on Saturday too, but that's okay.
Okay, sorry. So
That's not a work day, so we don't have to count that.
Seeing none, the minutes will be adopted by unanimous consent. Let's get the secretary time to keep up with these things.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So then, the next order of business on the agenda is the chairman's announcements. And the chairman's announcements are as follows. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to conclude the unfinished business of further public testimony and the nominating of applicants to represent Districts 30 and 31 on the Anne Arundel County School Board. We're also looking forward to conducting the same process for District 33, and at that time, now with more time on our hands available to us before that, to improve the administration of the commission. That's all the chair has for announcements, and now we're into the unfinished business, which we'll start with the public testimony. And we will find time for everyone who wants to speak. We'll find time for everyone who wants to speak, and we'll ask for any further public testimony. When there's none, we'll close public testimony. So anyone from the public who wishes to speak, this microphone's set up. Just so everyone is also clear, this is being recorded and will be posted on the SBNC website and televised. We'll announce those dates just like it was at the last meeting and for the last meeting. The reason it is not at the Board of Ed and televised live actually was a request from a member of the community. So, members who wish to testify may sit here at this microphone. They'll be given 3 minutes to testify, and I'll time that. If you would, please, when you come up, please state your name and address for us. And like I said, we will make sure that everyone who wants to speak has the opportunity to do so, so the order does not matter. Who would like to come up and speak?
Timer or light to look for?
I'll do the timer. My inclination with only maybe 10 people speaking at 3 minutes is probably just to let you go 3 minutes, and this thing will start making noise, and I'll just shut it down, and we'll know that.
Okay.
If he wants to do one.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. State name, I'm assuming.
Yes, please.
Amanda Fiedler, resident in Arnold, mother of 3 in the Broadneck cluster. As a parent in this county, I started Profits that a little over 4 or 5 months ago, and we stand for Parents Rallying Officials for increased teacher salaries. I want to first state the outrage that I and many parents have that the Commission's own rules have been broken in a process that has clearly has its own agenda to some on the Commission. Why weren't the nominees' interviews televised as they have been in the past? Why weren't their resumes made public until 24 hours before their nominations? Why are there so many political and business ties to our governor and county executive's office, who has thus far underfunded the county school budget so the categories are at 85% of the funding that they were in 2007? As we look at the candidates, we can start by addressing the immediate elephants in the room, no pun intended politically. Keeping in mind we're talking about serving on a board that works on a $1 billion budget. Mr. Boston declared bankruptcy, was not rehired by the school system that he's being nominated to serve on the board for, made a decision to pull out of the nominee pool in quote-unquote haste without much consideration. This illustrates poor money management, questionable career history, and an impulsive decision-making. None of these are qualities which a board member should have. Ms. Sasso, and forgive me if I'm saying any of these last names wrong, stated that her #1 critical issue is discipline and respect that needs to be addressed with teachers first. Her second issue would be new curriculum. Our county just rolled out new curriculum this year for kindergarten and first, and will be doing so with second and third next year. If anyone has been paying attention to the Board of Education meetings the past 6 months, they would know our teachers have an incredible workload, and that focusing on discipline should perhaps begin at home, allowing our teachers to teach. This begs the question, how knowledgeable is Ms. Sasso when it comes to the current state of Anne Arundel County schools? Mr. Appel has a background in finance, and his skills listed include conflict resolution, planning, financial system, budgeting, and cost management, yet he too has filed for bankruptcy. He has said he was put in this position by his former wife. This is a quote out of a, I believe, Baltimore Sun article. And he was left with business and real estate debts after his divorce. In a letter to the Capitol, his ex-wife refutes his statements with documentation that the business they owned was sold for a small profit in 2006. His bankruptcy shows over $158,000 in debt, including $62,534 from credit cards, $26,116 for a car, and $2,200 to his ex-spouse from an unfilled promissory note. At the least, he has made a mischaracterization of his finances. At most, they are lies. This is not acceptable candidate to sit on our Board of Education. This leaves us with 4 nominees. All of almost are white males. The commission's clearly missing the diversity mark here. 2 of these nominees, Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Gilligan, have political ties with the Governor Hogan and Steve Shue respectively. Will they be able to separate party politics from decisions from the future of our schools? Will they support the lack of funding that has thus far been shown by our county executive? Will they think in the best interest of the children and their teachers in this county, or will they be thinking in the best interest of the elected officials who gave them their jobs or who they endorsed during elections? The agenda of this commission has been so politically muddied, and the people who it will most greatly affect will be our children and their teachers. We ask that you reappoint Mr. Webb and Ms. Ritchie, or start this process all over again and do it with the integrity it deserves.
Thank you.
Can you state your name again?
Amanda Fiedler.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jason Foy. That's F-A-H-I-E. I reside at 319. Yes, ma'am. I reside at 319 Eagle Harbor South, Laurel, Maryland. That's Maryland City. I myself am a teacher, and one of the biggest problems I've seen is that between the governor and the county executive, there were names that are already given. People that you all submitted, and for whatever reason, these names weren't taken into consideration by the governor, I'm sure, through the voice of the county executive. This is the first day of Black History Month, and we sit here talking about diversity. I'm pretty sure that the people that were recommended, you all felt at some time, or would have done a fine job. So I don't understand why this commission did not fight harder to say, I'm sorry, Governor Hogan, this is unacceptable. You've had these names since Martin O'Malley was in office. Do your job, do your duty, and do what's necessary. It's frustrating that now our county looks very bad in the public eye, because almost every few days now we have an article in the paper about how these people whose names are going to the governor, how they look bad. Like the last speaker said, bankruptcy, criminal activity. It's a shame. And if that's who's going to be making the decisions for my salary, for the curriculum, for the way the money's spent, you're going to lose more teachers, because who you put on the school board is going to impact who stays in the county. I've spoken to the school board, and I told the school board, look, you need more diversity in this county, not just here not just on the school board, but in the county. If the people who are making decisions aren't going to be thinking for everyone, if they're only going to be thinking whether it's red or blue, then it's not going to be productive for all the citizens, and especially not all the students. So I definitely urge you, from now on, if you make a decision, stick with it. Please don't let the governor and whoever else is motivating him to decide for you. It's unfortunate. And like I said, teachers are leaving, and they're going to keep on leaving until something is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good
Hi.
evening.
Hi.
I'm Enid Collison Lee, retired teacher, 41 years here in Anne Arundel County, and I'm also Vice President of the Annapolis Education Commission. I wanted to make you aware that it was a unanimous endorsement of the current District 30 Board of Education member, Mr. Webb, by the Annapolis Education Commission at our January 4th meeting. It was discussed at our meeting that Mr. Webb is a representative who knows the Annapolis cluster of schools and the community as well. He is involved in various community organizations. He always attends the commission meetings, as well as I know he's very active on the Annapolis High School PTA. And he represents our interests in closing the achievement gap and many other concerns as fairness to the Annapolis schools. He has been a voice of reason on the Board of Ed and has been to numerous meetings. He's responsive to our needs, what we discuss, and he does a great job of sharing the Commission's goals and concerns with other Board of Education members. His bio is available on the Board of Education website. And on behalf of Trish Irwin, the chairperson, we invite you, if you have any other questions, to ask us. We'll be free to discuss this matter with you at a later date, or however, I can leave my contact information as well as hers. Thank you.
Trish Irvin?
Irvin.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Pline. I live at 305 Monterey Avenue in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm very involved at Annapolis High School, having been an officer on the PTSA, Music Boosters Board, and all throughout Bates Middle School and West Annapolis Elementary. I'm here basically to support, I'm not going to repeat it because it's what the other speakers have said, the concern about the process, that you had very well vetted candidates, very well qualified candidates who were put forward, and for what appeared to be political reasons have been overlooking them. Mr. Webb has represented Annapolis High School and the Annapolis cluster extremely well. My experience with Ms. Ritchie on the Board of Education has also been very positive, but speaking more in support of Solon Webb, he's been fantastic. He's the only person of color on the board. The only other person that's now been brought out in the process has serious issues. It's pretty clear to me that that person will not be nominated. You're going to end up with an all-white Board of Ed, and I just don't think that's acceptable in our county. With respect to some of the other candidates, serious issues have been raised for them. One, the only thing, most of my other concerns have been mentioned. I won't repeat them. I will add, I read with interest that Mr. Appel apparently has a child who's a sophomore at Annapolis High School. I have never seen him at our high school. I'm sure he may have been there in certain capacities. He's certainly never been to a PTA meeting. We have coffees with the principal at least 4 to 6 times a month. So over the last year and a half that his child has been there, he has not attended any of those. So I'm not seeing the interest in the Annapolis cluster and that he has a serious interest in education or public education in Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public testimony?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sebastian Serrano, and I am a science teacher at Annapolis High School. I sit here tonight after experiencing the past 5 tumultuous months of county politics. President Abraham Lincoln once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." President Lincoln oversaw and dealt with the Civil War, but he had not planted the seeds of divisiveness that had been taking root and growing for hundreds of years in our country before the firing on Fort Sumter. We must recognize our position within the history of our county's public school system. We have diversity, but what does it matter if we segregate it? We have money, but what does it matter if it remains in the hands of the few at the expense of the many? I have said repeatedly that my salary has gone down and my rent has gone up. I have said repeatedly that my ESOL students engage in scientific inquiry in spite of working 40 hours per week on the minimum wage because sometimes that's the only income their households have. And so we examined the new candidates for the Board of Education in the hope of finding workable solutions to our deep economic and societal problems. But among some of the new candidates, I see someone who has been fired from our system and cannot decide whether or not he wants to run, an individual who was rejected twice by the Nominating Commission but selected by our government with business ties in mind, a self-described advocate for Latinos in spite of a one-size-fits-all, my way or the highway approach for the influx of immigrants and personally attacking the faculty of Annapolis High School, and an individual among state leadership who was arrested for DUI but acquitted over a technicality. And so we are left to ask ourselves, have we found the antidote of our economic and societal pains, or are we fertilizing the seeds of division? I recently spoke with a teacher in Carroll County, a county that's also implemented work to rule. When I asked him about the status of the movement, he said without joy, "We have a better chance at reform than you because our county has already had its mass exodus of teachers. We have advocated for months, new individuals have chosen to run for union leadership, parents have organized and given several hours to contacting local officials in the ultimate display of altruism towards teachers. Yet the response is not a solution, but rather a counterattack against our principles of helping students think critically and seek innovation on all academic fronts. Our money has been taken. There are proposals to take more. Some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters have expressed fear that immigration police will hunt them down for the crime of seeking a fair chance in this world, and our leadership has chosen to shun the people rather than represent and protect them. I leave you with the following questions posed by the late Senator Ted Kennedy as he advocated on behalf of workers' compensation. What is the price, we ask the other side? When does the greed stop?
Mr. Serrano, how do you spell your last name?
Serrano.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further? You all get there.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Moselle, M-O-E-S-E-L. I am an Annapolis High School teacher, a Deal Elementary School parent, and an Anne Arundel County taxpayer. Each and every day, my children and I are subject to policies implemented by the Anne Arundel County School Board. The School Board Nominating Commission is charged with putting in place the people who are ultimately responsible for the education and well-being of every child in this county. This is a sacred trust, and to conduct this process with anything less than the highest standards of quality and diligence and impeccable ethics is unconscionable. However, all indications are that the Commission's nominating process has become corrupt. And once a process is corrupted, nothing produced by that process can be trusted. As a parent, teacher, and taxpayer, I cannot remain silent on this issue. That would imply my tacit approval, which is simply not true. At the risk of alienating friends and officials on both sides of the aisle, and my association leadership, as they occupy 2 seats on the Commission, I have to stand up and cry foul. I wish to address in more detail the inappropriate negligent actions of 2 Commission members specifically that I have the most knowledge of. As a teacher, I would expect the representative of my association to showcase the world-class teachers of this county. However, Mr. Bill Jones, in voting for Mr. Boston, was either unacceptably naive or disingenuous to the point of deceitful in claiming he was not aware of Mr. Boston's background. A simple question to the TAC Board of Directors would have readily provided disqualifying information, as Mr. Boston is a former recent employee of AACPS. As a parent, I am concerned with the duplicitous actions of Mrs. Pam Bukowski. She purports to represent the PTA, however, it is commonly known that she is a de facto second representative of the Teachers Association. While the interests of parent-teacher are ultimately compatible, they can be in significant opposition at times. To carry on a defiance of the spirit of stakeholder representation on the Commission is distasteful and untrustworthy. School Board Nominating Commission's latest nominees are, through no fault of their own, products of this fraudulent process. Therefore, any actions taken by these nominees, should they make it to the Board of Education, are subject to question, and should be questioned by every parent and taxpayer in this county. Unless and until the School Board Nominating Commission thoroughly overhauls its nominating process, This contamination would apply to any school board differing from the present group. Given that our Board of Education is entrusted with the allocation of $1 billion taxpayer dollars and the education of over 80,000 children, can we really afford to trust anything less than the most robust, ethical, and transparent process? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Rodvian. I'm a teacher in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I teach at Arundel Middle School, and I'm also a resident of Anne Arundel County. I don't have any prepared notes for what I want to say tonight, but I've been following everything that's going on with this commission over the last couple months, and I came here because I'm extremely troubled, as other folks in the room have mentioned. We've had very qualified candidates passed with their names passed forward from this commission, and those names have been set aside to put forward some very questionable candidates. And it seems as time passes, more questions arise about those candidates. And because of this, not only are, some of us here, I don't know what this room is usually like for the school board nominating commission meeting. I suspect it's never this full. This is my first time being here, coming to attend this meeting. I didn't know where to find the meeting, except they said Arundel Center, and luckily they sent me to the right room on the 3rd floor. But people are watching what this committee is, or what this commission is doing. And there are some of my fellow teachers that are contacting their delegates to the General Assembly because of their concerns to it, to say, hey, look, the process here has changed. There's been a change in the bylaws that is allowing this commission to put forward names with fewer votes and to take action with fewer votes in the past, has ignored, like I said before, candidates that had already been vetted and very well qualified to be passed over for what appeared to be completely political appointments. And for every person in this room, I imagine that there are probably, hundreds more that are watching what will come out in the paper, in the Capitol newspaper, from the actions of this commission, and are ready to change it if it does not clean up its act. So I hope as you, make your final choices, as you move forward and actually fill the appointments, you will do so with the understanding that there are eyes on you. You may not be elected, by the citizens of this county directly, but there are a lot of people that would really, really like to change this process. And if the process continues to appear corrupt, General Assembly is in session, and there are people willing to help with that process and put forward legislation to make that change. So as a citizen of Anne Arundel County, I hope you take that seriously and understand that it's, like I said, not for every person that's in this room. There are hundreds more that just don't have the time to be here and speak up tonight. Thank you.
Lisa, can you spell your last name?
Thank you.
It's R-O-D as in David, V as in Victor, I-E-N as in Nancy.
Thanks.
Who would like to speak next? Is there any further public testimony?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought the candidates would be here. I thought this was supposed to be a session with the people who were actually had their names in the hat.
No, they did their interviews the last time. They're members of the public and they could speak, but it doesn't appear that they've chosen to come.
I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. Anyway, go ahead.
So my name is Jim Snyder, and for the last 8 years I've been covering this body. I have a website, elighthouse.info. I've probably written some 500 pages of the various activities of this body over the years. And I wrote the Washington Post op-ed that forced the meeting this evening where I disclosed that the board hadn't met the 2 times that were required under the statute creating it. So now, so far my repeated efforts to retire from covering the SBNC have come to naught. In 2010, when I was chair of the countywide CIC, I practically begged to find a volunteer from among its 120 members to take over covering the SBNC. I got no takers. No one disputed that the Capitol had done an abysmal job covering the SBNC, but filling in for the Capitol's dereliction of public responsibility, which generally perceived to be a thankless job. This fall, I was determined to finally end my coverage after I was given the opportunity to share my reflections based on 8 years of attentively covering the SBNC, which included observing far more SBNC meetings than anyone on this panel and publishing hundreds of pages of observations. My plan was to present my observations of the first meeting of the SBNC when it would determine its basic and administrative procedures and then be done with it. Alas, that was not to happen. Soon after the governor appointed the new SBNC commissioners in early fall, I contacted 3 of the SBNC commissioners, Emily Brandenburg, Joan Maynard, including, most importantly, the new SBN chair, Jamie Falcon. I mentioned my basic concerns about the supermajority voting rule and public records practices of the SBNC, and they all invited me to share my thoughts at the first meeting. To Chair Jamie Falcon, I praised him to high heaven for allowing the public to comment on administrative matters at a time set aside for that purpose, and for the first time since the SBNC was implemented in 2008. I was also very clear that I couldn't finish my remarks within the typical amount of time allocated for public comments. No problem, he still encouraged me to testify. At the November 17th meeting, the time for public comments came and went without any public comments. Instead, the chair tried to ram through a series of procedural changes, including limiting public comment strictly to 3 minutes prior to allowing any public comment. Other commissioners voiced disapproval of these procedural changes, but not because they cared about public comment, only because they felt that they themselves hadn't been given adequate notice and opportunity for comment. At that point, I rudely interrupted the chair and reminded him that he hadn't allowed the promised time for public comment. He then granted me the 3 minutes allowed me under this newly passed public participation rule. No matter that I was the only member of the public present, no matter that I was the county's leading expert on an SBNC procedure, no matter that the entire meeting would take less than 50 minutes, no matter that prior to the meeting he had been all sweetness and light in encouraging my participation. After the meeting, I told him of his broken promise and he denied it. I then sent him a copy of our correspondence showing otherwise. To his credit, he generously acknowledged that his memory had been faulty. Leading up to the January 7, 2016 SBNC public hearing, I wrote to the SBNC chair and asked him once again whether I would have the opportunity to finish my testimony, which I estimated would take about 6 minutes. He never got back to me. By then, however, my heart was only half in the matter because I knew that the meeting on January 7th would have a full agenda. Still,
Mr. Snyder, you are over time now.
okay, I'm almost done, thank you, okay? Still, I believe that if the SBNC hadn't shown such contempt for due process, including its longtime pigsty of a website, where even SBNC members cannot find the rules under which they are supposed to operate, it would not have violated the law by holding only one public hearing prior to nominating the candidates on January 7th. I can further assure you that allowing me to speak for another few minutes on January 7th would have saved you a great deal of time and embarrassment, although I can fully appreciate
Mr. Snyder.
that by the time I spoke, the hour was late and the time short. The compulsive need to control and thus limit public participation, all of course done in the name of enhancing
Mr.
public
Snyder, before
participation,
you came in,
has been, in my
reminded
opinion, the root of the problem.
we had reminded everyone that, as you know, the next meeting is set very deliberately for the purposes of improving the administration.
As was the November 17th meeting.
Thanks. Is there any further? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Judy Cohen-Gorski. I'm a taxpayer, Annapolis resident, parent of an Annapolis Middle School student and Hillsmere Elementary student, and I'm also a representative of Ward 5 on the Annapolis Education Commission. And I'm just here to reiterate the Annapolis Education Commission's support of Mr. Webb for his past experience, everything that he brings to the Board of Education through his experience, through his roles in the community. And also, he, I think, is an important face for the Board of Education as the only diverse member of it, or one of the only. So we would just like to reiterate again our support of him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gorski, sorry to ask.
Gorski.
Thanks.
Is there any further public comment?
I'm an Annapolis resident. I have 3 children. Been a mother for 17 years, coming on 18 years. And I've been in and out of public and private schools in Annapolis. I have 2 elementary school students now in public school. And I've been remiss, I think, in not paying attention to county matters. This is the first time I've been to a meeting like this. What I've seen and learned over the past couple of weeks has me appalled, and I've tried to let my friends know, my neighbors know what's going on, because I don't think they're paying attention either. But I have to tell you that now that I'm paying attention, I won't drop the ball again, and I'm really disturbed by this whole process. And I appreciate the efforts of the people that are here who have highlighted that and pointed it out to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, was it Danielle Brooks?
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Any further public comment, public testimony? Okay. Seeing none, that closes the public testimony portion. And the next item on the agenda are the nominations to represent Districts 30 and 31. And the way we'll do that is a roll call vote in the order that they were randomly selected prior to the last meeting with the interviews. So the first in our, and I will pose, the chair will pose the question reading as follows for the first applicant. Well, I'll take it back. Is there a motion to nominate Terry Gilliland?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Or debate. Seeing none. The question is, the SBNC nominates Terry Gilliland to represent District 31 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon Proctor is not here. Commissioner Ferrara.
Yes.
Commissioner Gast.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Kipke.
Yes.
Commissioner Maynard.
Yes.
Okay, the affirmative has it, the motion is adopted. Okay, is there a motion to nominate Timothy Boston to the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there debate?
It's embarrassing.
Okay, seeing none, the question is, the SBNC nominates Timothy Boston to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
No.
Commissioner Dixon Proctor is absent. Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast.
No.
Commissioner Hammond.
No.
Commissioner Jones.
No.
Commissioner Kipke.
No.
Commissioner Maynard.
Yes.
Okay. The negative has it and the motion is lost. Okay, is there a motion to nominate Bernard Strauss to represent District 31 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Debate? Okay, seeing none. The question is, the SBNC nominates Bernard Strauss to represent District 31 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
No.
Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast.
No.
Commissioner Hammond.
No.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Kipke.
No.
Commissioner Maynard.
No.
The negative has it and the motion is lost. Is there a motion to nominate Chad Jones to represent District 31 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Debate? Okay, seeing none, the question is, the SBNC nominates Chad Jones to represent District 31 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
No.
Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast. Commissioner Hammond.
No.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Kipke.
No.
Commissioner Maynard.
No.
The negative has it and the motion is lost. Is there a motion to nominate Maria Sasso to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I give it to Joan.
Okay.
All right.
Debate? Okay. Seeing none, the question is, the SBNC nominates Maria Sasso to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
Yes.
Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
No.
Commissioner Kipke.
Yes.
Commissioner Maynard.
Yes.
The affirmative has it and the motion is adopted. Is there a motion to nominate Scott Schaefer to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Debate? Okay. Seeing none, the question is, the SBNC nominates Scott Schaefer to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
No.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Byrd.
No.
Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast.
No.
Commissioner Hammond.
No.
Commissioner Jones.
No.
Commissioner Kipke.
No.
Commissioner Maynard.
No.
The negative has it and the motion is lost. Is there a motion to nominate James Appel to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education?
So moved. I move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. You got it? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Debate. Okay, seeing none, the question is, the SBNC nominates James Appel to represent District 30 on the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
No.
Commissioner Burden.
No.
Commissioner Ferrara.
No.
Commissioner Gast.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
No.
Commissioner Kipke.
Yes.
Commissioner Maynard.
Yes.
That's 5. The chairman votes yes. The affirmative has it and the motion is adopted. That concludes the unfinished business. Next on the agenda is the new business. Commissioner Bukowski, I know you have something.
Yes, it's not an action item, it's simply comments. A request for input from the parents of Anne Arundel County revealed nothing that you have not already heard tonight. Those that responded indicated that they feel it's upsetting for those whose children are in the school system to see the political drama that is played out publicly in the media for months based on the whole school board kind of fiasco. When we met, when the commission met in June, viable candidates were nominated, their names were sent forth, but they were not, nobody was appointed to be put in place by the date specified by the law, which is July 1st. My votes at that time reflected the wishes of those parents who had responded back to me. Tonight, my vote also reflects that. The input that I received, and again, you've heard some of it here tonight, indicated that there are already candidates who were sent forth. Their names were not sent back. Therefore, as the viable candidates, there was no reason for them not to be considered, and for nobody to be, there was no reason that somebody was not appointed from both the 30 and both the 31. That's it.
Is there any other new business? Okay. Seeing none, the next item listed on the agenda is to adjourn.
I have a question. Next meeting, are we still waiting for responses on the
We
scheduler?
have an online scheduler. I believe 4 or 5 commissioners have completed that, and we'll use that, although I know some commissioners are just flexible. We'll use that to pick the best, at least, body of evenings to choose from for the District 33 appointment and for further work on the administration of the commission.
And just as a courtesy, could you tell me if people like myself who want to speak for more than 3 minutes, I have more than 3 minutes of testimony on procedures at the next meeting. I've already attended 2.
Why don't we correspond on that, and you can send me your manifesto.
No,
And,
I'll wait to do it, you know,
Okay.
it's, you know what it.
Oh, you said no. Oh.
Is there any other new business?
Yes,
Mr. Burton.
Chairman, for the last couple of meetings, we have traditionally, over a period of time, more recently have met at the Board of Education, where all the media facilities exist for our process, our procedures, and how we conduct our business is live streamed to the viewing public, as well as it is taped to be put up on the website. I would like to suggest that all subsequent meetings, we look at the availability of the school board facilities, and that we return to meeting there so that the public can view our process and procedures in real time.
Understood.
Is it okay if I comment on that?
Please do.
We had absolutely checked all viable options to
Mhm.
be able to live stream with the council chambers, the Board of Ed, and City Hall down in Annapolis. One of the requests from the Board of Ed, especially given the last few meetings that were 5 hours of closed session and having the entire crew and everything else, while this isn't supported, as far as a website and media and those sort of things from this is sort of a group of volunteers doing it. The rule from the very, very first meeting in the minutes where we were going to split the responsibilities between the county and the Board of Ed. So this is sort of a collaborative motion or idea, or saying, okay, Board of Ed, we hear that you've sort of had this and you've had this on your shoulders for such a long time. Let's go back and forth, let's figure it out. So it is something that is probably mischaracterized. It is trying to spread the love a little, for lack of a better word.
Well, if I may follow then, at least I as a commissioner was never aware of the discussions between the school board and the county and sharing responsibility.
Well, it's in the meeting minutes, and it is from the very, very first beginning ones that are posted way back in 2008. And that was what was in the meeting, and it said there was discussions that this was going to be shared between the two groups because it's not supported through the state, even though it's a state commission.
Recall the shift of venue was a suggestion of Mr. Snyder's in response as a representative of people concerned with the goings-on of the commission, and the challenge to audio-video became a byproduct of that change of venue. It's the chair's interest or thought to try to have the District 33 hearings in District 33, if we could find a venue there, particularly if we can get down this audio-video to get it edited or whatever has to be done to it to get it posted more promptly than it was last time. It's the chair's thought that it would be nice to do this within each of the districts under consideration, but I appreciate your concern, absolutely.
Okay, I understand. I have one additional comment. You noted in an email to the commissioners some concern about being able to pull together materials and past records
Yes, sir.
of the commission. Is that correct? And in the next meeting, we're going to be talking about administrative procedures.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Could you convey to us the challenges that you've had in trying to acquire the past
Right.
documents and procedures and so forth? You know, we did have a previous chair, we did have a legal counsel, if I'm correct, that assisted
Right.
the commission. If you could just share with us what your challenges have been, we'd really appreciate that.
The video is posted on the website. The Chairman Green had mentioned a manual of voting procedures. I've not seen a copy of that manual. I've tried to reach for the former chairman at the one phone number I've been able to find for him, and it's I think it says it's not in service or something like that. I've tried to find him on Facebook and haven't been able to find him. I've not been able to reach the person to ask him for a copy of it, and I haven't received it from any of the...
Michelle Davis drafted it and has the copy of it.
Okay. Michelle Davis. So this would be a good starting platform for any administrative changes. As was mentioned tonight, we have to be clear on what the administration is to improve upon it.
Well, let me just say, Mr. Chairman, I'd be willing to volunteer to assist you in trying to pull
Thank you.
information together.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that we have as much as we can reasonably and possibly have before the next meeting.
That would be great.
So that our deliberations can be productive.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments for new business? Yes, Commissioner Kowski.
I do have one more comment. Because a precedent appears to have been set in having asking that their application be withdrawn and then rescinding it, does this mean then that that can happen again? That once a nomination has gone forward and the candidate asks for it to be withdrawn, then changes their mind?
Probably something we need to vote on, I would think, because that's the first time.
Well, we
it's happened.
didn't vote on the situation that just occurred.
But we did vote on the candidate. Each commissioner voted based on the information the commissioner had on the candidate, and that was part of that information.
No, but we did not, as a committee, vote whether or not. Okay. so that's
Are we
fine.
required to vote on that kind of thing?
Each nomination of this commission and the prior commission, each commissioner has voted their conscience on each candidate with all the information available to them, from public comment to the candidate's testimony to applications and whatever they find on them. So that's part of that information. That's part of that body of information for each commissioner.
That's not what I meant. What I meant was if a candidate withdraws their name, why should they be allowed to rescind that withdrawal?
So under new business, the concern is, should we develop a process for handling candidates who withdraw their name?
Correct.
Okay.
And actually, I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that when a candidate whose name has been approved has decided to withdraw, that the withdrawal stand.
I'll second that.
Let me make sure I'm going to get the question word for word correct, okay? I understand the motion to be that a candidate who has submitted his or her name and requests it to be withdrawn, that the withdrawal stands.
A candidate whose name has been sent forward for a candidate who has been nominated, such as Mr. Boston was nominated to have his name sent forward. He withdrew that, and then he rescinded his withdrawal.
Who has been nominated. I understand the motion to read that a candidate who has been nominated and requests his or her name to be withdrawn, that the withdrawal stands.
Correct.
And that's what's seconded.
Yes.
Debate?
I have, I guess, a couple of questions on this. When Mr. Boston decided to withdraw his name, did he do it verbally? Did he do it in the press? Did he do it in writing? Obviously, it did appear in the press, but was there a phone call that took place, or did he
He
submit a
submitted
letter?
an email that
Okay.
the commissioner received at the same time as, I think, I received the other email. It was 6 hours apart. It was a very short time frame that both emails came to me.
Should there be a clarification as to how it's communicated, the withdrawal? Would you consider that as a friendly amendment, to the extent that, we need to have some clarification as to how a candidate withdraws.
Yeah.
They're pending, possible appointment due to nomination being set forth. It just seems appropriate. I don't know what the feelings are of the others.
Just that there's a procedure in place for how they withdraw with.
Well, we have a procedure in place for how they submit their name for consideration. There should be a procedure in place as to how a candidate can withdraw, or should withdraw. That would seem appropriate. And so if the maker of the motion is willing to accept the friendly amendment, that the procedure for withdrawal should be in writing, either electronically received or via mail, or whatever the case may be. Okay.
I accept that.
The notice should be immediate or within a certain number of days, or just notice? I'm just wondering if there's a clarification on the
I don't-
timing of it.
You're not suggesting what the procedure should be, right? Just that we should have a procedure.
Well, I suggested that there be a procedure in place. There was a motion on the floor. I asked for a
Right.
friendly amendment that any notification of withdrawal should be in writing, and that was accepted.
That's being ready.
I did not comment on any length of time, that a nominee sent forth to the governor should exercise that right to withdrawal. I would assume that they could exercise it at any time.
I assume there's some logistics, because if the letter has been sent with the names at that point, you're going to need to notify the governor and not the school board nominating commission. I think timing is a critical issue in this.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and I was actually asking about the timing of somebody on the commission getting the notice, and then the time between that point and the point of communicating that with all of us.
Which was the case.
Well, then, in that point, we're talking about communicating to the nominating commission the desire to withdraw. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
intent.
Is there a process in place after the nomination's been submitted to the governor for the candidate to withdraw? Is there a procedure in place for that?
If I can jump into this, there's a question we might want to get answered first. Once the name goes to the governor, does it become the property of the governor? Do we still have the right to withdraw?
Good
It's
question.
out of our hands.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Just as a point of order, the typical use of, to table a motion is typically it's misused. To lay on the table until a specific time is the actual proper use of tabling a motion. Is there a motion to lay this motion on the table until the administrative meeting, and we can review the questions that have been raised to go with the District 33 meeting? Is it to lay it on the table until that time?
Would you be willing to postpone your motion until the administrative meeting, or withdraw it and resubmit it at a later date, or table it?
Table.
Okay.
Second.
There's a second on the motion to table the motion, to lay on the table the motion of, let me get my language, that a candidate who has been nominated and requests to be withdrawn, that the withdrawal stands. To request, let me read it again. Well, before I read the question for voting, since I'm having a hard time reading it, is there any further debate on the table? There is no debate on table to motion, never mind. Okay. So, we're voting to lay on the table until the next meeting, the District 33 hearing, the motion that a candidate who has been nominated and requests to his or her name to be withdrawn, that the withdrawal stands. Commissioner Brandenburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Burden.
Yes.
Commissioner Ferrara.
Yes.
Commissioner Gast.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
No.
Commissioner Kipke.
Yes.
Commissioner Maynard.
Yes.
Okay. The affirmative has it, and the motion is adopted. Any other new business?
One other comment, Mr. Chairman. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm just trying to get some questions asked. We all heard the public testimony about, the candidates and the appropriateness of possibly vetting the candidates in some way, shape, or manner beyond what we've been able to accomplish in the past. Certainly what's happened recently has caused some concern on the public. I'm sure it causes concern around the table among us. This may be better discussed at the next meeting we have when we look at procedures. During the application process, we probably should look at, are there any questions we ask on the application, ask appropriately to be able to identify whether there are any, matters of concern that a potential applicant would want to bring to the commission. But I say that also in recognizing that if that is asked on that part of the application, is there a level of privacy that we grant to the applicant? So that the commissioners are aware of any concerns, but there's no undue embarrassment caused to the applicants in a public setting. In that case. But I think we heard very loud and clear from the testimony today, public testimony, that there is a concern that there be some vetting process that is above and beyond to address some of these other issues that came up. And some of us, I certainly received a question as to whether there is any background check done on the potential applicants. I was under the impression that the school system eventually did the background check at some point after the appointments went to the governor, but before the appointment was made. I've heard other comments that, no, that's the governor's responsibility and his people to do that. But perhaps we need to get that addressed so that the public feels confident that the candidates that do go forth and are eventually appointed, don't have any problems that may create questions in the public's mind.
I'd like to also bring something up. There are some questions that are asked in the application for the appointment, being, have you ever been convicted of a crime? All right. Are you a registered voter? How long have you been an Anne Arundel County resident? Perhaps we need to look at the application process itself. I think the other thing that we need to look at is the leeway time. And I think this was expressed before when we had asked for the applicants. There was only about a two and a half week process in between. And I think that was also during the holidays. So perhaps we need to look at that also as to giving them more time, deadline, because it does take time to answer questions, and perhaps it wasn't a propitious timing at the time to ask for applicants. Just a thought that we need to think about.
Any other new business?
I was just thinking about the background checks. I mean, I guess this is the first time it's really been an issue because they weren't, if I understanding right, they've never been done by the commission. Is that right? People who've been on it before?
We're not charged with doing background checks.
Right, right, I agree, yeah, I know, because I mean, if we had, 50 applicants, what would we do with doing the background checks? Then we we could like judiciary search individually if we, yeah, I wanted mean, to, we could just Google, personally, I guess, right, individually, yeah.
Well, we had 37 almost a year ago, yeah.
Right.
And we had 4 meetings, and
But you didn't
yes, that could have been difficult. But perhaps, that is necessary.
The other question is, what is the threshold? What is a background check? What is
Yeah.
the threshold that is
And what would be our
a background check? And do we have the expertise to do that and to do it in a way that the public or the governor's office, if we were to task ourselves with doing it, would we have credibility in our background checks?
Well, in some cases, some of the applicants had background checks, I'm sure, for part of their positions and their jobs, okay? They might have had security checks. I mean, as you go through the resumes, some of those positions needed high security clearance as well as background checks. So that's also another thought. Something to reflect on.
Right, it is, right, because we need to decide who's going to do them and how we're going to go about them.
Maybe the applicant.
Any further new business?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I understand there's a lot of frustrated people here, but thank you for coming.
Ask a question for the benefit of those of us who did take times out of our schedule to come. Would you maybe give us just a couple minutes on what the next steps are in the process so that we, the public, understand that?
The next step is that a letter is written to the governor with the list of the nominees, and then the governor decides from the new nominees and the existing nominees who to appoint. And then our next step in our process is to repeat this for District 33. That's the one that's up next. Yeah. And with that, that's I think June. So we have a much longer window to do that. So a lot of the things that are being discussed here will be much easier for the commission to do with a longer window to do it. So,
And you are going to have a separate administrative hearing, is that correct?
The chairman's current thinking is for scheduling, anticipating a large number of applicants for District 33, of scheduling applicants similar to this. For just so folks know, the scheduling of the applicants was done by finding their availability on January 7th, and they were 100% of them were available, and that's why we went with the January 7th meeting. If one was not available, we would have held another hearing on, I think, was the 12th, at which time there would have been plenty of other time. So something like that is when we fit it in with time around the applicants, we'll do.
Okay, so
we'll
just so you
update
know the
administrative-
history, last
Yeah.
May, before you took office, some of the people who were here at this meeting, the chair promised that in September, there would be a special administrative hearing where we could discuss all of the concerns. And that was actually promised on multiple occasions, and of course, there was no hearing in September. Nothing happened. So when you make a promise like this, and now you're hedging a little bit, alarm bells go off. Similarly, I thought on November 17th, that was finally going to be the real hearing where you had the administrative hearing, and it didn't happen. So I hope that there actually this time really will be a public hearing to address the administrative concerns that have been on the agenda for a long, long time.
I see other hands, but we actually have had the public comment period, and I think we're having an informal discussion. Let's continue an informal discussion. When we adjourn, I'm happy to talk to anyone for as long as you like. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any opposition? Okay, by unanimous consent, we'll adjourn. And I'm glad to speak.
Who made the motion?
When will the video be available? That's my question.
Ask the tech guys.
I know there's more people than here that make the motion.
I understand he's a new guy though, so.
You make that motion?
I don't think I did, but I'll take credit.